You got to write a lot of crappy songs to write one decent one, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's probably true with every aspect of the business, really. Got to play a lot of crappy shows to have good shows.
You're listening
to the CD Baby.
CD Baby.
CD Baby.
DIY
Musician Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 344 of the DIY Musician Podcast. I'm Cristina. Today we're doing something a little bit special. We're bringing on an artist to interview in our Artist Spotlight series. James Phillips of the band Bombadil, folk band that has been together for 18 years. I believe that they are the true embodiment of the DIY musician. They've had incredible albums, they've worked with top artists, and they've just done it. They've figured out how to do it. They've turned this band into a successful business. So we're going to talk to James about how they did that. Let's bring Chris on.
Hey, what's happening?
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
I'm good. I've got a concert tomorrow that I'm doing with my
Cool.
friend Greg. He's an amazing, apparently there's something called a master fiddler.
Like, what does that mean?
It just means, I actually don't know what it means in that world, but it just means you're really good and someone has acknowledged that you're really good. He's amazing.
Oof.
And I'm backing him up on guitar and we're playing
Cool.
French Canadian dance tunes, which, like people who listen to this podcast, they probably know I'm like a indie rock, indie folk guy, but I've gone fast and furiously into this world of fiddle tunes. But anyways, how are you?
I love that your versatility is always evolving. I'm doing great. I just did a fun shoot this week for my next single.
I saw pictures.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how they turned out. I'm sort of doing the thing that we always tell people not to do, which is distributing it like the week before the single comes out.
I thought you were going to say making an actual music video. That's the thing I tell people not to do, but you're doing it.
No, I'm not. I didn't make a music video. We took
What was
some
the Corvette for?
Well, for the photo shoot, but also to take some video for everything else. So I couldn't afford a videographer, but I was able to get my photographer to bring like a VHS camera. So we took some footage and we had a lot of fun just, seeing what we could make out of it. So I'll definitely have promo video and I'll have those sorts of things. And maybe I'll be able to piece it together. It was. We drove up to Malibu.
Just I guess what you do in LA.
We did. We just blasted Randy Newman along the way. And yeah, we had a great day. It was really fun.
One thing I was going to say about our episode ahead is we'll be having the artist discussion, like you said. And then Roof from our business development team will be on here to tell us about this program that Amazon Music has launched called AMP. I won't give too much away, but it's a really cool thing that any artist with music on that platform can use. So she'll tell us all about that after.
Very cool. And I am so excited to have James on today. Full disclosure, James is a great friend. I've worked with James creatively. I've been at James's wedding, so it's definitely a good friend of mine. And I think you'll be able to hear that in the interview. But I'm so impressed with this band, how they've been able to succeed for 18 years. I believe this is their full-time job. So to me, that is sort of the goal. I think that's at least my personal goal, is to be able to just survive off of music. So how did they do it? And so much has changed in 18 years, how they continued to do it. So I'm excited. Let's bring James on. Hey, James.
Hey, Cristina.
How you doing?
I'm doing great today.
James, this is the first time you've joined us on the DIY Musician Podcast, and the reason why we're bringing you on is because you are in Bombadil, which has been a band for... How long have you been a band?
18 years, I guess.
That's amazing. And yeah, how did it start? I mean, I know that you joined... Did you join like a year in, or how did that start?
I joined a year, or I guess 2 years in. The band started when my bandmate Daniel put together some friends in college to start a band. They were at Duke University. I was at UNC Chapel Hill up the road at the time. The original drummer of the band was Daniel's brother, who wanted to go on to medical school, and so I responded to a Craigslist ad seeking a drummer in 2007. The only requirements were that you be willing to travel and that you like burritos.
That was
So you were like,
two
sign
great
me up.
requirements. Yeah.
So our first meeting was at a burrito joint, and yeah, that
Were they
was
good burritos?
yeah, really good.
Well, so when you essentially joined an existing band, what were the expectations, or what were you expecting about your involvement and maybe your creative input? Were you sort of just a side guy at first?
You know, the band, everyone sang in the band and everyone wrote songs. So from the outset, I was encouraged to do both and have creative input. There was controversy about that at times as we got to know each other, and we're just, in our early to mid 20s, kind of figuring it out. But I joined originally to be a touring drummer. I only at that time played the drums and hadn't started songwriting. So yeah, I just expected to hit the road, and I guess I joined in the fall of 2007, and in 2008 we probably played 180 gigs, maybe 200.
Holy smokes. And that was only after like 2 years of being a band?
Yeah. Well, I guess 3. Yeah.
Did
Was
you
it
eat
just
180 burritos?
No, at the time we were eating a certain fast food sandwich chain's foot-long sandwiches. I would eat half kind of around lunchtime and half around dinner time, and now I can't even look at that sandwich chain without being utterly revolted. I can't
If
believe
it's the
I
one
lived
I'm
on
thinking of, I can't even smell it without
It has a distinct
like,
smell.
PTSD thoughts.
There's a lot of conversation on the internet about the smell and whether the bread classifies as bread or not. Apparently, in the UK, they ruled that it was not bread.
There's no nutritional value at all.
You might want to fact check me on that, but I did look it up on this last tour.
And it said
Yeah,
not bread.
yeah, we were reminiscing about the good old days.
Well, speaking of bread, in the first few years that you were starting, you were touring, you were recording, you were, writing. Did you have time to also have a job, or was this your full-time job?
This was our full-time, it feels generous to call it a job.
Hey, it is a job.
Had little to no money ever.
Sure.
But also no time to really work a job. When I joined the band, I was temping at UNC doing administrative work. And I did end up doing some temping when I wasn't on tour at that time, doing things like shipping mouse genetic material around the country. Which was a weird job, but we were just so busy we didn't have time to work. And this was 2008, which you probably don't remember at this moment, but we do. There was a gas crisis that coincided with the economic crisis. So we were driving this Ford E150 around the country with epically high gas prices. So we just never had any money. And the way we were able to do that is we lived in a really rundown house together and had roommates beyond that. So I lived in what should have been the dining room and paid $75 a month in rent.
Whoa!
Was, had its ups and downs, but it was easy to make rent, and yeah, I don't know. We were young and dumb.
I had forgotten about that gas crisis, but now I'm remembering we were taking a Sprinter around the West Coast in the middle of that. It's being like, this does not make any sense. This vehicle at this time.
Totally.
Well, what's funny is that you guys are saying gas prices were astronomically high, but I think that at their peak, they were maybe $3 at that time. And now they're $8 in certain parts of Los Angeles, just saying.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so I do have a few questions because, like you said, you were really taking off in 2007, 2008. And at that time, we didn't have Instagram or, people were sort of using Facebook, but not really. Maybe Facebook events was a big thing. What did we use? MySpace at that time? Like, what were you using?
MySpace. Yeah, 100%
So that was your
MySpace.
main social promo, or how did you reach fans?
MySpace and our email newsletter, we sold a lot more CDs and got a lot more email addresses at that time. And in that era, I remember kind of a year into that, we got our first GPS. So before every tour, we would print out like the MapQuest directions and had a special binder for that, which I feel like even when I've talked to people who toured earlier than that, that was an advance that like computers could help you get there the fastest way.
Right.
You know?
It was just having the atlas in the car and pointing and figuring
Right.
it out along the way. How did we do it? I don't understand.
We seemed to get by. I don't even feel like we were really texting all that much. Remember, text used to cost money, so you would just mostly call on your phone. So we were talking about this on the most recent tour. We were all dating people, and I remember just like all of us getting to a gas station and then doing like slow walking laps around the gas station, talking to our various partners on our, flip phones.
Because texting took too long back then because you had to push the button 3 times to get to the letter, right?
Right, yeah, T9.
What's crazy that we're talking about this as if it was ancient history. Now when we think about these things, it feels like that was 30 years ago, but it really was only, 15 years ago. And so it's sort of like bananas that even something as simple as GPS was such an advancement at that time, and now it's everybody has it in their phone, everybody has it on their watch. There's it's undeniable that we have these advances. We have social media, we have all these ways to reach people. So very cool that you were able to build something that was able to transcend into this era with tech.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Chris? Sorry.
Oh, I was curious. So you mentioned MySpace and your own email list, and obviously people coming to shows as a way of your like interacting with your audience. And both of those things are somewhat within your control. I'm wondering if you also like explored things that were out of your control, like a publicist or pitching your records to labels or kind of wanting to get outside help at that stage.
We did have outside help at that time. I don't think we could have done that without outside help. We had a booking agent, New Frontier touring in Nashville, and we were already signed to a record label, Ramsar Records. So we had help, and at that time, getting fans of the label and the cities we were going to hang up posters was a big part of our job. So we were
Street team.
Street teams and so on, which feels less of a thing now, but that certainly took up a lot of time.
I'm wondering if you could back up a little bit then, like what had the band done to get the attention of the label and the booking agent and stuff?
It all came from the label, and honestly, the band just got really, really lucky, and that happened before me. A friend of the band was working at UNC's Performing Arts branch as their like college job, and a band called the Avett Brothers were coming to play at UNC, and this friend got Bombadil to open for the Avett Brothers, and the Avett Brothers manager, Dolph Ramsar, listened to the songs on MySpace and saw the band and signed them before there was even any music out.
Wow.
So I have no idea how to get signed to a record label. Like it just kind of was baked into our experience, and Dolph is still a big supporter and still puts out our recordings and helps us out in any way that he can.
Still as Ramsar, or you're sort of more independent now with Dolph, right?
Dolph releases the music as Ramsar Records, and is just like an old confidant. I wouldn't say he really manages us anymore. Kind of a gray area, I would say, that it has come from having such a long relationship. Like if we have a specific thing we need his help with, he's more than happy to help us if he can.
Well, I know that you're on the road all the time. And now do you have a booking agent, or is that still...
We have had 2 other booking agents over the intervening years, one more of a DIY situation, and then we were on High Road touring for a couple of years. But at this point, we are in the U.S. booking ourselves exclusively.
That's really impressive because you just did a whole tour, right?
Yeah, we just did 6 weeks that Mostly Daniel, the other long-running member of the band, handles the booking, but I booked a few shows as well. And then in Europe, we're going to Europe for our fourth tour in the fall. We just signed with a booking and publicist company over there. So this will be actually our first tour in Europe that wasn't self-booked.
That's amazing.
I've got a question just about sort of the basic, I don't know, leadership structure or whatever you'd call it, or even ownership of the band. Is it primarily you and Daniel at this point, and then other people are ancillary members, or is it still a sort of proper band?
From a business perspective, and even really a musical perspective, the band is Daniel and I at this point. We wrote all of the last record. We have a new guitar player who came in and helped finish up, I think, definitely one, maybe two songs on the composition side on the new record, and sang one song and did some background vocals. But at this point, definitely as a business, it's the two of us, and as a creative entity, it's the two of us. But we try to make the live performance be a little more democratic of a situation. And in the last year, we've actually had a old songwriter rejoin the band for live performance purposes. But
Cool.
His name's Stuart Robinson, but he hasn't contributed to any of the new creative work at the moment.
Do you and Daniel over the years like explicitly divvy up responsibility? It sounds like he's doing booking. Like, have you had conversations where it's like, you handle this, I'll do this, etc.?
Oh yeah, and when we both lived in Durham, we just got together every day. We considered it our job, and it was just every day.
Every day?
Every day. Our Monday through Friday, we would get together kind of 2 to 6 and work on business, our new merch, or songwriting. We've done we have so many unreleased song ideas. I wouldn't go so far as to call them songs. And that, I think, Daniel now lives in France. So that has continued to where we're on FaceTime a couple times a week and texting and emailing every day about business questions, creative ideas,
I think that's so aspirational that you are meeting every day, and that they say if you want your creative passions to become your career, you have to treat it like your career. You need to put in the time. You need to put in 40 hours a week, and you literally did treat it like that. Every day was a day job. We meet, we talk business, we talk creativity. I think that's really impressive, considering a lot of us, myself included, are the kind of artists that can just sort of do it in spurts.
right.
And then, there aren't a lot of results from that, but you're literally putting in the time to make sure that it's a career.
And you got to write a lot of crappy songs to write one decent one, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's probably true with every aspect of the business, really. Got to play a lot of crappy shows to have good shows. It is. I feel like if I have one piece of advice, it is that, just like persistence, stubbornness, and volume. It's always better to do something than not to do something. From our perspective, I feel like there are folks who have different approaches to the music career that I think can end up in a more lucrative place. But to me, that's kind of winning the lottery or something.
Amen.
Speaking of like doing something a lot and maybe not always getting the results you want, like you said, write a lot of crappy songs to get to the good ones. That still implies you're like judging everything by your own compass. You're still trying things in your direction. Did you ever go through a phase or have to confront something that felt really, I don't know, the wrong road or inauthentic, whether creatively or business wise?
We've had our interpersonal struggles. I feel like we've made enough records now to know that like we have no idea what people are gonna like, even at this point. I know what I like, and I'm really happy if we get to the end of a record and I like the whole thing and feel really proud of it. Which has been true of the last few records. which is great. 3 in a row that I'm incredibly proud of. But at the same time, when we're done with a record, we have no idea which are the tunes that the fans are going to gravitate towards. Or we've been in the last few years playing weddings kind of regularly, and it's always surprising to see. We will learn a cover, but we just play a Bombadil show at a wedding. But let the bride and groom choose the songs, and it's always really kind of surprising to me the ones that they pick. So again, going back to the volume idea, and that art is to me a practice. That we have to practice being Bombadil by being Bombadil. Writing songs, playing shows, creating new, larger vision projects.
I know that you've also had music on TV and film, and I'm sure that that's also helped supplement your careers, but how did that help amplify you as a band?
Honestly, I'm very grateful that we've been in TV and movies. We, in our interpersonal relationships with our fan base, haven't seen that had an incredible impact other than being big paydays and a nice recognition of our work. It's pretty cool
definitely.
to be in a Cineplex and have your song come over the speakers.
I actually went to the movie to see the song come on. When was the Heartbreakers for the Judd Apatow movie? Was that the movie?
Yeah, it was called Amy's Friend, was the song that was in the Judd Apatow movie. We were the second song in the credits. So we had this great time where we went to see it all together. And it was a pretty full theater, but by the time our song came on, only we were in the theater. Everyone else had left already because it was the credits. But it was a great score for us,
That's so classic.
Financially, and I do think part of the industry is like the things that you can talk about on your bio as well. That it's a feather in your cap, as our manager likes to say, and
definitely.
And that's helpful. It helps you get gigs and get other movies and TV shows. So.
I had that experience too, where I was so excited because of a song placement, and went to go listen to or watch the episode to wait for it to come on, and I'm like, where is it? And then I turned to Justin, my husband, and he's like, I think that's it. And it was in the radio, like way in the back of the scene while they're talking over it. I'm like, oh man, I thought this was going to be my big moment, and people were going to Shazam me forever. No, but big opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, I'm imagining in both those instances, the paycheck was nice to help support some future project. But that makes me curious about, you mentioned early on CD sales being kind of a big source of revenue. Like, you don't have to talk numbers, but like, how has that shifted over the years? Like, what was supporting the band as a business 20 years ago versus today? And has it become much more scattered and diversified, I guess?
Nothing was supporting the band 20 years ago.
I just have to really quickly say that when I first met you, I learned how really good you are with saving money, and that you were always making peanut butter jelly sandwiches whenever you'd come into town from tour or whatever. You had your like economically safe meals, and you're very good at that. I have to say that.
Thank you. It's a skill that has been kind of fading away from me, unfortunately, but
sure.
It's nice to be comfortable.
Yeah, no, totally. We have definitely, we go to a fancy coffee shop every day on tour now.
Nice.
But I'm also almost 40, so.
There you go.
But now I would say still the biggest dependable source of income is playing shows. Merch sales at shows help a lot. We've started in the last kind of few years before the pandemic, and now we obviously didn't play for 2 years during the pandemic. But we've shifted to doing a lot of house shows, which are just more lucrative. And we've had this experience playing clubs where just the club's expenses are so high that it's pretty hard to make money from the tickets, even if you're filling up the rooms. So having a little more informal event can be both more intimate for us and the listener, and more financially lucrative for us.
And I figure that you're probably also creating more meaningful fans when you have those intimate settings, because you can actually go shake hands and talk to people. And I love house shows for that, because you're a part of the party rather than the entertainment, etc.
Right. Yeah. We have been the entertainment at a house show every now and then.
Yeah. Where you're
I
the
mean, they're
background music.
pretty diverse, in how they go. But we also have been doing that enough that there's maybe 10 houses in the U.S. that we could do every year.
Wow.
Which is wild. Yeah. And really fun for me. Yeah. I love potlucks and barbecues,
Usually they
And
provide
at this
food.
point, we have a small but loyal fan base. So these people are my friends.
Yeah.
And people I care about and want to catch up with. And so I enjoy that intimate setting. It's a lot of social work, which I wasn't expecting getting into the music game in my 20s, but
Meaning you're becoming their psychologist as you're at their house?
No, yeah. More that socializing at that volume is laborious.
Totally.
Not in a bad way, but it just is a draining thing. Yeah, when I get home from tour, I kind of have to be in my building by myself for a while.
Do you have ways built in, like when you're at house shows or even venues, to protect your own energy level? And because there's that weird fine line between not wanting to blow someone off. You want to respect their support of you, but you can't make yourself totally available at all times.
Right. Yeah. Usually we ask that there be a room that we can go into. Honestly, I don't use that too much. Probably more now. I, over the pandemic, had a child, and my son's 3.5 now. So this tour was the first one where I feel like he was really cognizant that I was not there. So whenever I was having a moment of free time, I was trying to FaceTime with him, which, FaceTime with a 3.5-year-old is usually a 3 or 4 minute thing. But it was nice to have those rooms to go find him. And then he'd usually want me to show him if there were any kids there. So I kind of tore him through the party on FaceTime and cruised back. And somehow that actually gave me a nice, I feel like people give you space when they recognize what you're doing like that. And again, we know so many of these people. I feel like the first time's always that we do a house show is a bit like testing the waters and getting to know someone. But now kind of people who have done them before get the sense of the flow of the evening and how it can be the most fun for everyone. And we try to make it, super fun for everyone, ourselves included.
I do think that's a good point about the green room. I think one of my biggest pet peeves is when the green room turns into the party zone. And the irony of that is that I met you in a green room when I was on tour. I
don't know if you remember when I met you there that I felt very abashed to be coming to the green room.
No, you have
this is your sacred space.
Right, you respected that for sure. I think you were like, "Oh, I don't have to come in," but when there's the party or there's one band member who's like, "Yeah, bring everybody in," and that is like a big pet peeve for mine, because you need to have some space to restore.
Especially when it's the opening band, the local opener has the party next to the hummus plate, and you're like, "Man, I just wanted some quiet hummus."
That was my hummus plate. And then the other thing is that we were going to talk about a little bit about touring as a parent, because that is something that Chris and I are going to explore on another podcast, just sort of how becoming a parent really evolves. How does that evolve the journey of being a musician? And you just touched on that a little bit, but with sort of the frequency of which you're touring, do you find yourself wanting to be more of a homebody, or just sort of adapting how you tour with, are you going to bring your kid on tour, et cetera, et cetera?
I'd really love to be able to bring him on tour. We were out on the West Coast on this tour, and we just couldn't quite financially swing it, my wife and I. But I think the next time that we're away for that long, I'd really like him to come.
Yeah.
What else has it changed? I think we did 6 weeks in a row this tour, and we realized that is too long consecutively. Like he did great for 3 weeks, and then the latter 3 weeks were tough.
Not just as a parent, but it's also hard to leave your partner for that long.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, definitely. And
I couldn't do it.
And that is true for Daniel as well, who's married, and but we're also trying to optimize travel across the Atlantic Ocean and figure that out. I think the big shift, for whatever reason, in the last year or two, I've been getting more opportunities to tour with other bands, and I did a bit of that this year and realized that I didn't really want to do that. It was fun, and I love playing music with my friends, but I'll take local gigs, and I'd rather work when I'm not on tour with my band. I'd rather work on people's recordings here.
I think for me, when I became a parent, the biggest shock, it shouldn't have been a shock because it's such a cliche, is just how difficult it was to find dedicated time to focus on things the way I had before. And so I'm wondering, like, does that, clearly it's affecting touring because you said 6 weeks is too long, but like, even if you're just songwriting, let's say, has it affected things that you can even do domestically, kind of to not have the focus you used to?
Yes, I feel like it's getting better now. I feel like I have such a weird journey into parenthood in that my son came in December of 2019. We had 60 shows on the books in 2020. And we were just going to figure it out. I was going to take 3 months off from the band, and then we were going to kind of hit the road both in the US and Europe, and we'd see how it goes. Like make the most of my wife's maternity leave, which was very generous. And then the pandemic came, and then I was a stay-at-home parent for a year and a half, which was really, really great. And I feel like I would have never chosen to do that. But for me to be at home for the kind of the most extended period of time of my adult life with this new person I was getting to know was a special time for me. So it all still kind of feels new, even though he's almost 4. But, he's in full-time daycare. I have a dedicated building for music. I am fortunate that I've been getting a lot of work from other bands doing mixing or recording. So I think that all keeps me focused. I am always trying to optimize my focus to stay kind of a little more productive. And in ways, a friend who is a songwriter and a parent told me that she felt like in some ways she was more productive after her kid came, just because when you get time, you use it,
Yeah. Exactly. I do feel that way as well. It was just an adjustment phase for me to realize.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But I guess that adjustment phase, fortunately, the silver lining of the pandemic for me was that adjustment came while I had like no obligations at all other than caring for my child. And we had a person in our pandemic pod who could take him. So I was doing most of the childcare, but had kind of 10 or 15 hours a week where someone else would take him. And I made 2 records in those 10 or 15 hours a week for a year and a half, Like I really, really focused and was like only working on music in that time.
That's wild. I also have always, not to get too personal about your personal life, but have always looked up to your relationship because the two of you are creatives and you sort of give each other the time to work on each other's things. And so I find that to be very commendable. And
thank you.
Incredible as part of your relationship. But
oh yeah, no, like my life would not be possible without my wife, and she is very supportive and encouraging and understanding about what I've chosen to do with my life.
She's fine eating peanut butter sandwiches as well.
We actually
that was a different era.
she likes peanut butter too much, so we've started not having it in the house. So I've
funny.
I've changed to Kirkland brand mixed nut butter, which is much less tasty than peanut butter, but it's healthier. It has flaxseed in it, but it doesn't like encourage you to take a spoonful of it out and just eat that as a snack. So
I'm in
we're
the same
peanut butter
boat.
free house at the moment.
no.
Not my choice, but I'm being supportive.
Oh
of it.
no.
So speaking of abstaining from things, have y'all encountered like a quote opportunity that everyone in the music industry is talking about? I'm thinking about TikTok specifically, but like where you've been like, oh, cool, but no.
I feel like I'm too old for TikTok. We have noticed that it's popular. I try to avoid social media personally, but I also understand that we need to do a certain amount of it for the band. We've kind of pared back. Like, I feel like in the teens, there was this kind of encouragement to do it all and do it all well. But I'm like, I don't get Twitter. I don't get TikTok. So I just don't do them. And we mainly do Instagram and have it port over to our Facebook. And that I can get. And I like taking pictures of my bandmates on tour, and I like making silly little videos to post up there. That's like fun to me and creative. So we just do that. I think we've also never tried to go to South by. We haven't done the Folk Alliance. Some of that has been encouragement from our manager. Some of that has been talking to friends who've done it.
The encouragement from the manager is to not do those things.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just,
Oh well, both Chris and I love
if you
Folk
already
Alliance.
have,
So
what's that?
both Chris and I do love Folk Alliance. So I do recommend you come check it out sometime because it is
But
really
if you don't
awesome.
need the gigs, sounds like they're booked up. So it's like you're not desperate for that kind of work that
Yeah.
you would get
Right.
if you went to Vocal Alliance.
Yeah, and I'm not
I will
sure if we kind of I know we're billed as folk, but I don't know if we kind of fit the kind of traditionalist view of what a folk band looks like.
I will say that you did release In Color this year, and I watched her social media rollout, and I thought it was very engaging, and it stood out to me from other releases. I think you've always been good at marketing, but I noticed the sort of extra push you put towards promoting it, making these videos, making these stories, and sort of telling the story of the record. So
Right.
even if you don't really enjoy social media, I think you did a great job.
Thank you. And I actually, something that I'm planning to do is get back to that now that we're off the promotional tour. I think at this phase, I've realized I only have so much space for anything. Like, can't do it all the time. And we are doing most of the things ourselves. So being on tour was what I could do. And it seemed like just updating what we were doing on tour was enough for social media. And so I've been home and recovering for a week from tour, and now I'm going on vacation with my family, but then I'm planning to get back to making some videos that are kind of more backward looking at the record now that's been out a bit. I think because we're just a little band, the release time is when you generate the most sales, but you're still getting new listeners for, our even on this tour, our last record, which came out in 2019, was selling pretty well on vinyl, and it seemed like people who had gotten to know that record wanted to pick that up at the merch table over the new record for whatever. I mean, I can't say why, but
Well, they didn't get an opportunity in 2020 to buy it, so that makes sense that they were.
I guess the
purchasing
back
now.
half of our promotional tour for that got canceled. So
But that is a good reminder that the promo for a record doesn't stop, 6 months later, it doesn't stop a year later. You can always be pointing back and always be trying to promote past work.
yeah, and I felt like making videos in particular, it felt creative to me. Like I could be silly and have fun and show the process, and it wasn't like doom scrolling and trying to get the best selfie or something. It was a little more like writing a song to me. Still like in the promotional part of my brain, but I hadn't really done that, made videos until really last year or two.
The marketer in me wants to know, Christina, as you were watching that rollout, what was the vibe or the story that you were picking up on? And then I guess if you answer that question, James, maybe you can say how intentional it was to create that effect. It's a two-part question.
That's
Well,
a good question.
For starters, as the audience member, and I only knew this mostly from your marketing, but also I knew you, so I knew, and I got the pleasure of getting to hear the record before it came out. But each song is a different color, correct? So you sort
That's
of
right.
leaned into that in the marketing as well, I think, from what
Yeah.
I remember. And so getting to latch on to that, I mean, everybody that knows me knows that I love a theme to really push on marketing, from bathtubs to cars. We're running with themes, but this one obviously had one. So seeing something that you were able to latch onto and then push that, and also the other vibe that I got from it is that you are a very endearing band that has a very warm sound, but also a very warm environment of fans. So I feel like you really honored them in the voice that you used to market this as well.
Thank you. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
this record I think was also easier. Like the last record was kind of, as I mentioned, we just got used to just get together every day and work on songwriting or whatever. So it was kind of like a culmination of the best of that. And actually now looking back, like that's a good marketing story. But I think because it was just our process at the time, we didn't market it that way. And in Color, like we had this theme that we wrote the record to, and we gave ourselves lots of limitations, like for instrument choice, and I think it made a sonically distinct record from other things that we've made, and it was just easier to talk about, to be like, I only used this delay, this analog delay. I made a video about my favorite analog delay that I have in my studio.
I love that part. I think as a musician, I really like when musicians market to other musicians. Pulling the veil back and saying, this is what we used, or even just now in this conversation, knowing that you had limitation, that you like those sorts of creative details are really engaging to me as a musician. And I wonder how non-musicians feel about it. Do they get really bored by us being like, here's my gear?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think I like that, watching, it's like watching Bob Ross or something.
Yeah.
Or my wife is a puppet artist. Like I love learning little details about how the things are made, or because of her, puppetry is pretty widely used in movies, and she'll point out like little things in movies that I would never know about, and I find fascinating. And yeah, I would say that's probably true with most creative fields. Like if a writer whose book I enjoyed talked about their process for writing it, even though I only very aspirationally want to write a book, but probably never will. I'd still like knowing that. Oh,
I hope you not only write a book, but that you also narrate it for the audiobook version, because I could just listen to the. Cool.
Bedtime with Poppy.
Is that what it's called? And it's
that's just what popped in my head because I read my son books every night.
Well, everybody should listen to In Color. I think it's a beautiful record. I do love that each song is a different color, and you can feel that in the spirit of each song. Yellow feels yellow to me. Did you guys talk about that in advance, how you wanted the spirit of the creative aspect of how each color represented each mood or feeling or theme, etc.?
Yeah, sort of. We didn't, that was less of a words conversation, more of a musical conversation. One of the limitations was that we found a list of 12 colors, and one of us would write kind of a full composition of chords and production, but no vocal or top melody, and send it to the other one to write the vocal and the top melody and the lyrics. So
that's interesting.
Each, like when I would be making the instrumental, so if Daniel is singing lead on the song, and Daniel and I have relatively different voices, I wrote the chords and kind of the initial production idea. And so I would keep the color in mind for that. sometimes literally, sometimes figuratively, and then the same when I was writing the lyrics. So yeah, but we never really, I think we each have a like very different understanding of what that is for each side, but didn't kind of discuss it. And at the time, because it was the pandemic and we were doing this to kind of stay creatively engaged with one another, it was just like a lot of saying yes to one another. So I feel like clarifying each other's ideas would have been a way of saying no instead of just saying yes and, if that makes sense.
That may have answered the question I was about to ask about collaboration, but like I was curious in that process when one of you is getting something, significantly along in terms of a finished product, how do you not get overly attached to the incomplete part of it so that what comes back is you're not like, oh, that's not what I would have done, or that's disappointing in some way. Like,
I think that's the answer to that is quantity again. Yeah, I don't know, this is our 8th record. We've put out some EPs, I don't really get attached to musical ideas anymore. And if someone like leapfrogs onto my musical idea, I'm thrilled. And then after we did all of that and got these songs written, we stripped everything away and just played them on piano and sang. And then we hired new musicians our initial idea was to have the musicians play all the instruments, just have us sing. Because part of the idea was to see if we could make a record that didn't sound like Bombadil.
Oh, interesting.
Which we've now decided we can't.
No. Well, you always will sound like you.
It's very hard not to sound like yourself. And of course, then we got excited and I ended up playing instruments a lot, and the project evolved. There was a lot of editing, but I feel like right now where I am creatively, I just say yes a lot, and it's more exciting and fun to see where it goes. And I feel like Daniel is the same way, and I think that will probably change in ebb and flow. And we're currently kind of looking for the next project to make a record, realizing that we don't really want to, we each write songs without each other, but we'd rather the kind of big records be true collaborations between us and anyone we invite into that particular project. Just is it more exciting to both of us.
Speaking of ebbing and flowing with sort of creative, saying yes, creative control, was there a learning curve there when it became the two of you of how do we accept each other's ideas, or had you been working together so long that it had already organically gotten there? Did you have to have a negotiation conversation, or was it just a natural?
Again, I feel like the answer to that is quantity of work together. Yeah, so I learned how to record and started recording with Daniel particularly when he had a repetitive use injury in his hands, and so he just like couldn't use the computer. So a lot of times I'd be kind of like driving for him and just in the room back before I was, competent on guitar and piano. And so it's just evolved over the years. When Stuart left the band in 2014, we'd done a pre-sale that promised an EP with a record that was coming out, and we hadn't made the EP. And
classic Kickstarter promise.
Yeah, we had like this week to make something that we were proud to show our fans, and that became Still Bombadil Volume 1, which I really like. And it was the first time that we were like, we got nothing, let's just use drums, the Rhodes, and then 3 sampled instruments that we made out of household objects, and those can be the only sounds besides our vocals. And we have to have an EP next week.
Whoa.
And it was awesome. Still there's several songs from that one of those we had to play at a wedding recently. I would have never thought it would amount to anything, but it did.
I love the way that you're band has evolved, and I love the stories. I love how much exploration and collaboration and experimentation there is. And I think it's really exciting that you have 18 years later maintained this as your full-time career. And I appreciate you telling us all about it.
Thank you, Christina. Yeah, nice to talk to you, and nice to meet you, Chris. And
Yeah,
talk to you as
likewise.
well. Yeah,
I think my takeaway is people that want to succeed have to treat it like a habit. You're doing that beating every day, whether
Yeah.
songs arrived or not. It's great to hear.
Yeah, I
thank
think
you.
that's my biggest takeaway too. To freaking put in the time, put in the quantity, say yes.
Yeah. It's easy to say no, but it's fun to say yes.
Thanks for saying yes to the podcast appearance.
Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
What a nice guy.
I know. And
Seemingly, or he's just like a really good actor and he's really a psychopath. But
oh no, he's an incredible dude and I love him so much. He was actually in our wedding too. So, but James is incredible because, like he said, he's just on tour for 6 weeks. And I forgot to mention, he's one of the co-founders of a label that I run called Bathysphere Records. So we're putting out a record every month. I don't know how he's finding the time for that, for his band, for recording other artists, and also being a parent and a partner. He's one of those people I look up to for sure for time management and balance and sanity and patience. So
he
thanks,
did use
James.
the word optimize. So,
but he's not the kind of guy that's like American Psycho, like running every morning, being like fuel and brain optimization sort of thing, So I appreciate that about him.
that's cool. Well, we'll go from that artist spotlight to The Deal. The Deal is our segment where we talk about music industry news and some of the things that our partners are launching. So we're going to have Rue on to talk about something really cool Amazon is doing.
Hello, my name is Rue, and I'm here to talk to you today about Amazon AMP. So what is Amazon AMP? Amazon AMP is a separate platform that Amazon offers where you can essentially become a radio show host. So it's live radio reimagined, an interactive live stream audio service where independent and emerging artists can play their music, talk on any topic, interact with fans, and grow their community. So this is a really great way to kind of diversify the ways that you are engaging with your artist fan community, all of your fans that are coming to your shows, that are following you on your socials. They're used to seeing that kind of content, and I'm sure you're used to focusing on that kind of content. So this gives you another way to engage with your fans. They can call in, just like on old radio shows. You could have like a question and answer style show where your fans can call in and ask you questions and you answer them live on the air, or you can have guests on your show to talk about any topic of your choice. There is also music available in the app for you to use. There's a library, so you can go in, you can select your songs that you want to focus on, or you could also select from any of the other songs available in the library. So it's got tons and tons of genres, tons of artists, and just any song you can think of. There's also a chat feature, which allows your fans to talk to each other while you are hosting the show. You can also interact with your fans in the chat yourself if you'd like, maybe while a song's playing or something, for example. And there's a replay functionality as well, where you can offer your show on demand to your fans with replays up to 2 weeks after it airs. Again, this is audio only, so you don't have to do any special video setup. You don't need any special equipment. You can just connect with your fans right where you are and go live. There's also a very exciting creator fund available. So with this creator fund, you can earn money with monthly payouts from Amazon directly for hosting a show. Now, there's no special eligibility requirements for this except 2 things. So, well, 3 things. Number 1, you have to be a creator on the app. Number 2, you have to be at least 18 years of age. And number 3, I'm really sorry, international friends, you have to be living in the United States to be eligible for the AMP Creator Fund. If you mentally checked off all 3 of those boxes, congrats, you will automatically be considered for this Creator Fund just by creating on AMP every month. Every month, Amazon is going through, looking at all the artists who are creating and checking to see who is eligible. So once you are on this platform, essentially, you can really create your show however you want. There is no special guideline. There are tons and tons of resources available to you, though. If you go to www.onamp.com, there are tons of resources. There's this 101 support series, which you can see now. There's lots and lots of topics on there. There's individualized lessons that break down how to use the app and how to really get the most out of Amazon AMP. There's also an FAQ where you can go through and get all of your questions answered about how to use it, how best to grow your audience, all of those kinds of things. And then there are really helpful social assets already pre-made for you. So you just plug in your own pictures, your own show information, and you can have those social assets ready to go, ready to blast and promote your show on all of your social platforms that you use. So really, they've got everything ready to go. All they need is you to come in and host a really awesome show. Now, when you are thinking about your show, if you're interested in starting one of the things that you want to think about is this is truly an ongoing kind of radio show style platform. It's not like social media where you just want to be posting whenever, or you have your posting timeline and strategy built around your tours and your releases and all of those things. You can build this in as well. So it's up to you what kind of show you do and how often, but I would recommend doing it more frequently rather than less frequently, because of course you're going to get more traction, more listeners, more interest. So once a week is great. You can do multiple times a week, twice a week, bi-weekly, whatever you want. But that is one piece of advice that I will give to you. And if you're thinking, well, do I have to be like a special kind of creator? Do I have to be an influencer? Do I have to have any other prerequisites before I can just hop on here and start talking about music? No. Anyone who wants to start a show can start a show. There are creators on there who are playlisters, talking about new music that they've discovered. There are creators who are artists themselves, and you can go on there and you can listen to other shows to get some ideas for your show as well. I would highly recommend doing that because there's a really wide variety. And you can also just get on there and talk about music you like. So yeah, talk about your influences, talk about what you're writing, the stories behind your songs. All of your fans want to hear these things, and the opportunity for them to be able to call in and talk to you in real time is just so much more meaningful than, you know, a comment on your Instagram post or something along those lines. Obviously, keep doing those things too, but here's another tool in your arsenal for you to really engage your fans and stimulate that conversation around your music. So check it out. Go to onamp.com. Check out all the resources they have there. And one final thing that I will add here is they, in addition to the Creator Fund that I mentioned earlier, they have an Amazon AMP Emerging Artists program. And this program is same thing. You don't have to apply for it or anything like that. It is automatically going to be something that they're looking for through the entirety of all of the creators on the platform. Their ongoing basis vetting for people who are eligible for this program. And the Emerging Artist program offers white glove onboarding support and setup, priority level customer support, extra strategy tips and tricks for earning more from the Amazon AMP Creator Fund, as well as tips for growing your audience on AMP. So tons of resources, tons of support available. And this only came out last year. So there's still a really great opportunity to get in early and get your show something that is the most exciting thing your fans are talking about besides your latest release. And that's what I have for you today.
Thanks. You know what? I hate to sound like a boomer for a sec, but do you know what that reminds me of is the Sirius XM artist dedicated stations where like Tom Petty would come on and be like, here's my favorite songs that came out this year or whatever.
Absolutely.
Like my mom has satellite radio in her car, so I'm guilty of really enjoying Sirius XM. I borrow it.
Yeah, no, my mom does too. That's so funny. Yeah, it's absolutely like that. It's exactly. And also terrestrial radio when they would have hosts, obviously for the station, but bringing on artists to do live sets, you could do things like that. So there's lots of opportunities and lots of appetite for this kind of interaction with your fans. I think this is a lot more. It's almost face-to-face, you know, it's voice-to-voice. You can actually get on the show live and ask those questions. And that's really, really exciting to fans.
Until that goes awry. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, until they ask you the question you don't want to answer.
Yeah.
I like that they put no ring light required or whatever it was in their marketing, because I think artists are so tired of having to be on camera for everything. And it's like, yeah, I'll just talk.
Yeah,
I
and
do
it's
think
also,
there's burnout a little bit about being an influencer and being an artist. I just want to be an artist, but having these opportunities to have a platform to still get to reach your fans in that way is very cool.
Yeah, and it's also kind of going against this short format trend that we see. You know, everything is like 30 seconds or less, 15 seconds or less, like quick little clips that have to be fully produced, and you have to storyboard that too, and then you've got to do all the editing. And this is just much more conversational. You can really deep dive on topics that you love. You can talk, I mean, any artist could talk forever about their influences and how they got to where they are now with their songwriting style or their techniques that they use. You can talk about your favorite guitar. It doesn't matter, but you can really deep dive. And this is more a return to that long form, organic kind of relating to your fans. So I think it's a really, really awesome opportunity. And especially for independent artists who maybe aren't touring as frequently or don't have the time to be an influencer on all these platforms, you know, this is something that you can sit down with your team, sit down with your band at the time that you choose. So really flexible, really kind of taking that known format of a radio show and turning it into something a lot more interactive.
I think you said this, but the episodes are not archived forever, right? They expire after 2 weeks or something like that.
Right. So they're live only, and then there's a feature where you can make it so that it's available for your fans to replay it within a 2-week period. So I think the default is that it's just when it's over, the live is ended, but you can set it up to where you could offer that, you know, afterward if your fans wanted to get access. So this could be built into a larger, you know, superfan monetization strategy. Maybe you already have a Patreon, or maybe you already have one of those other avenues that you're using to offer digital experiences, live experience, special merch, special releases, things like that. You could maybe build in that, you know, get access to our shows whenever you need to listen if you can't get into the live. And that could be something that you offer as a package there. So
that's cool. I think that also takes the pressure off of it needing to be archival material the same way we might fret over, I don't know, a piece of video content that we know is going to last on our feed forever. Cool.
Yeah. And so if they do ask you that question you don't want to answer, you could just be like, whoops, that one isn't available. The live has ended.
Lost forever.
Thanks for coming, Rue.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Well, there you've had it.
There it was.
Episode 344 of the DIY Musician Podcast. Bombadil. We had Rue talking about AMP.
Yep, and I know you're going to take a little bit of a break, and then you'll join. I'm going to make an episode without you about Web3 music and does it matter in a bear market? Christina doesn't think it matters ever.
Really good that I'm not going to be on that episode. I want to make a disclaimer now on the podcast that I promise I'm not as much of a tech phobe as I come off as, but I know that I feel like I'm becoming the podcast curmudge when it comes to anything internet related.
We all have our roles to play.
We do. And I'll play this character as long as you want me to.
Well, I hope you have a great break. And then we sort of alluded to it, but when you come back, we also have an interview discussion lined up for this podcast about parenting as a musician and how to be a good parent and musician without sacrificing the other. So I'm excited for that.
I don't know how to do it. Yeah. All right. Well, peace be with you.
And also with you.
And also with you.
Ta-ta.
Ta-ta.
You've been listening to the CD Baby DIY Musician Podcast, broadcasting from Portland, Oregon, USA.